Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Welcome to another 2023 Project Orchids video. This is orchid number 7, which is a bit of a usurper because it wasn't voted in the top 8, it was voted in at number 9, but orchid number 7, the orange vanda, died. So this became its replacement, so that's how it got in. Now, this is the final video, so this is where I pull all the videos for this particular orchid together in one single video. Now this particular orchid, really, it's a project on its own, outside of the Project Orchids. We start off with a repot. We found that the orchid had fusarium. There's a lot of discussion in the set of videos about that particular problem with orchids, treatments, and how I went about it. So as I said, there's a lot of separate information in here in a single video. So let's get on with it. I hope you enjoy it. Now this is it's a good project as a project orchid. It is a project. It's needs revitalizing because, mistake or not, I let all of the new growths push out the side of the pot and bloom, and that has really stressed and weakened the plant. Now the oldest part in the plant here, of the plant in the centre here, is a waste of time. So the idea is we're going to rejuvenate this into smallish pieces and put them all in the same pot and see if we can get it to grow on this year with some reasonable sized bulbs. These old bulbs are probably not going to plump up, they're too soft. And then the idea would be to put these pieces in a pot, get them to grow on. So the project is to see how we can recover a plant that's almost gone over, basically. All of the new growths have lost the ability to root. They're out the side of the pot. So let's get it out of the pot. These types of Miltonias are strange because they can be vigorous growers, but they can also just not do very well one season when they were doing okay the previous couple. They just sort of need bringing back. There's a rock in the bottom there. Most of the bottom of this is media with no roots in. This is a shallow rooter, which is why it was put in a flat, a flat shallow pot. It's going back in the same pot, but not as it is. It's got to be separated right out. And the best thing to do is separate the pieces now so that I'm not messing with roots that I'm not going to keep. Now I'm going to just take them off like this. So I've gone back. There won't be many old roots. Now, do we carry on? For those of you that have never seen it, that is fusarium. Yeah? See the purple ring around the outside? So this now has to be treated with a fungicide, and it also means that if it's got too far into the plant, it might not make it. But we can try and treat it, so it's now even more of a project. Because it's not only chances are that is why it hasn't been growing very well, and it might be too far gone, but we can but try. So and that will explain a lot. So I wondered why this plant had just sort of stopped growing, really. It just lost all its strength. So we've got a piece there. Getting the sheaths out of the way as best I can. This one has got an eye for a new growth, so there's a potential for a new growth there. There's probably there's one on this side as well. So that's what I'm doing. That's the pieces I'm sort of looking for. Right, next one. It'll be throughout the whole plant, I expect. Now, under normal circumstances, this just ought to be thrown out, really. It doesn't look as bad in this piece. but it's probably in the whole plant. But we will see what we can do. As I said, I've had several that have had this fungus. It's not a virus, it's a fungus. And that purple ring is the spores, and they get in the waterways that stop the nutrients and the water flowing through the plant, specifically and particularly at the rhizome stage. So it stops the nutrients getting into the plant basically by holding them back in the rhizome. It's a nasty piece of work. Some orchids can live with it for years and years and years and not show any signs of weakness or anything. And others go down really quickly, and they go right down. You know, they actually fail miserably. It's a strange one. So there's another piece, same again. You know, the old bulb, the new growths, and the new eyes. 2. I don't know how many there's going to be. A few. But that piece has got hardly any signs. You have to wonder, did this plant come to me with it? You see what I mean? Or has it caught it here? It is possible it caught it here. I do share water. But I've never known that actually happen. Nearly all the plants I've had that I've found with you usually find Fusarium when you repot. So if you get a plant in and you don't repot it for a year because it's in reasonable media, you don't know you've got it. It's not until you cut into the rhizome that you can see it. You can see the symptoms, you can see the weakened growth, because that's what happens. It stalls the growth, it stunts the plant. And worst case scenario, it will actually kill the plant. So I forgot to clean the roots off. Got to get the old bits off. It's only bark, it's not the end of the world. So that's 3, and that leaves 1, and this one has actually got 3 new growths, not 2. So this is a larger piece basically. And that's quite pink, that one. Right, all this out of the way. So every single one of these shoots bloomed, except this one. That was the only one. Everything else bloomed. So even though it might be a weakened plant, see now that's got quite a good new growth coming. So it hasn't, the disease hasn't stopped it growing, and that growth there has got 2 new growths coming. But it could stop them growing. As I said, it depends how far into the plant it's actually got. And that's you know, that is a dependent thing. We just have to wait and see. But I've got fungicide. I will treat it, and then we will plant it up, and it's going to go in a rescue media now, which that's not what it was going to get originally when I walked out here, but it is now. So I'm just taking old bits off, sheaths, old flower spikes, all that sort of stuff. Right, so those are my pieces. I'll have a clear up and I'll be back. We'll get it potted up, and then we can monitor the progress through the year. And what I might do is at the end of the year, if it does grow on and the new growths push on quite strong and push new roots out, what we might do at the end of the year is sacrifice a piece and cut the rhizome of this year's new growth, which we haven't got yet, and just have a look and see if it's got the pink in it. Because it is possible that if I treat it, it stops it where it is. The new growth can grow out of it and grow clean. That's how you effectively cure. Well, it's not cure, you kill it off and stop it working. And it needs a good systemic fungicide. It's no good mucking about spraying stuff on the outside of the plant. It lives inside the plant. It has to be systemic. And you have to repeat the treatment as per instructions. If it says repeat every 10 days for 3 treatments, then do it. Don't miss it, don't leave it longer, do it as it says. And you stand a much better chance of the plant recovering. And I've got several items that have managed to recover and grow on, and when I repotted them after a couple of years, cut the old bits off, pink, cut the next bit off, clean. So it can be done. And we'll see what we can do with this one. I'll be back. Right, let's see what we can do. The spraying needs to be done outside. Now, before you all start, what about the wildlife, what about the bees? First of all, there's hardly any bees around, it's still winter, it's still too cold. And I always spray over a bit of a shrubbery, and there are no flowers, so there are no bees. And nothing else that I would need to worry about. There's no seeds there, so birds aren't pecking around. It's just an area where the spray just gets washed down by the rain, as and when we get some. I'm supposed to be having rain this afternoon, but it hasn't happened yet. A dirty finger. Well, cinnamon finger. And now, of course, we want apple pie, don't we? Some water in there, I can rinse that off. And we're putting a clean pair of jeans on to go to Wisley tomorrow. So I can wipe my hands in my jeans, or dry my hands. Now I've got a lot of moss. Cleaned the pot up, not having any crocking. I'm going to use up whatever's in here. This is the remainder of the various mixes we've been doing lately. And that gives me a base. Not much, but some. And then on top of that I'm going to add a lot more perlite. As I said, this is a recovery repotting now, so we want everything that's conducive to producing roots, and the perlite's very good at that. A lot of people actually plant plants in perlite, nothing else, to get the roots going, and then, you know, transplant them into something a bit more substantial later on. So that's the base, and then in there is going to be a lot of moss, and I mean a lot. Very heavy on the moss, and I've saved some of the moss there to go around the top of the plant. So this is what we're working with. Right in the bottom, that's the loose stuff, and we start piling this in. And these plants are going in deep. They're very shallow rooted, yeah, so they can sit right in the pot, and in theory they might not need staking. That's my hope. Right, let's see what we can do then. I'm not worried about the new growths having enough room. That's not the important bit. They will push themselves up against the side of the pot and produce roots if it's going to grow. So all I'm interested in doing now is getting these somewhere in there where hopefully there's enough room to grow a bit, but I'm not worrying too much about that. So they've all got room now, and now what we do is we get another lot of heavy on the moss and just drape it around the top of the plants. So I will have to lift them up individually to drop the moss down so that it sits up against them, and any new roots that come out go into the area that's heavy on the moss. That is their sort of media, basically. That's what's around the plants. And the plants now are just sitting in it, on it, in it, slightly in it, on it, perched. Yeah, the other reason I'm not spraying them today is it's late in the day, and the thermostat on the heater is going to be turned down soon, so the amount of airflow in here drops off. And tomorrow I'm out all day, so these won't actually get sprayed until Saturday now, and that'll be fine. On to the last one now. Right, so all of those pieces are now sort of sat in the middle. The middle hasn't got any media. I'm just going to put some bark in the middle, not moss. The moss type media, the heavy on the moss, is what they're sitting in, and that's where the roots will come, and hopefully the moss will encourage that process. But the fusarium will be trying to stop that process, so there's a fight to go on now to see who wins. But the fungicide will do an awful lot of helping. As I said, I have treated plants before and they've recovered completely. Eventually, as I say, all you do is stop it spreading, really. You can't get rid of it. I'm just going to drop some media in the centre, just so that those rhizomes aren't exposed. There we go, that'll do. Right, so that is it. That is our plant. That's what we've got. And it may or may not grow. All I could expect from this plant was nothing, anywhere from nothing to something. Nothing being that the fusarium had got so far into the plant it couldn't grow. Well, we've got past that stage. All of the eyes we looked at last time, apart from this one, I believe are growing. So here we have a new growth. Here we have two new growths pushing out. We have a new growth here. Any more? Oh, and another one up the back there. So we have quite a few new growths. Oh, there is one down there, look, on the end of my finger. Right, so we have growth. With that growth will be roots. Not immediately on this one, the roots come a bit later, but they will come. And with this type of media that we put in here, which was relatively heavy on the moss with perlite and small bark, those roots should take hold quite well. Now this had a double treatment of systemic fungicide for the fusarium not long after we repotted it, so that was 2 months ago. In another couple of months' time it will get another pair of treatments, and I'm going to hold off on that treatment until I can see these new growths opening leaves, so that we can get it down into those new growths from the top, as well as by then hopefully up through a new root system on these pieces. So yeah, this is more of a quick update, but we have success in as much as the eyes on these little pieces that we started off with are at least growing, and some are actually pushing on quite strong. So we do have a pot full of new growths. Now these growths will not be allowed to bloom if they attempt to. I want these to grow on vigorously if possible, so pending fusarium trying to stop them growing. So we will keep our eye on it. It's going to get fed and watered regular. Don't want this getting anywhere near dry, and stonk it up basically. Even the older bulbs to a degree have plumped up. Not a huge amount, but they are slightly plumper than they were before. So far so good, but no blooms for this year. So all we can watch on this one is the rate of growth, and if the rate of growth is reasonably good and some new root systems push out from these pieces, then the fungicide has probably done its job in as much as the new growths are working clean. Yeah? The next set of new growths on top of that should be totally clean. And the next time these pieces are repotted, the back end can be cut off and remove it completely. That's the long-term plan. For this year, I just want the biggest bulbs I can get and new root systems on all of these pieces. All I could hope for, having discovered fusarium, was that it wasn't that bad in the system that it stopped the new growths growing. Well, it's a bit of hit and miss at the moment, because if you look in some cases, let's take this growth here for instance, we've got two lovely strong new growths coming out and roots starting to grow. There's nothing wrong with that. If we move round to the next one, again a nice new growth coming out. But if we have a look at some of the other new growths, they're not right. You look at that one, it's got pale streaks, and the one next to it. So has that one. So there could have been parts of this plant that were more infected than others. And I would suggest that certainly this part now is growing clean. So the plant's been saved in some shape or form. These are all separate pieces, and obviously at some point it'll get repotted again, and those separate pieces can be dealt with as separate entities. And any that have pushed up deformed or physically poor quality growths can be dumped, keeping the ones that are okay. So that's my theory. All I can do at the moment in with this is to keep it hydrated. Don't let it get totally dry. Always make sure it's got availability of moisture, and it's already had its fusarium treatment. You can't overdo that. If you overdo that treatment, you can cause harm. So it will get another pair of treatments in the future, but not yet. But some of the pieces are growing okay. Some of them look a little bit weak. But then the pieces were in different stages of development. So, I mean, as I say, this one that's growing strong round here, if you look at the size of the back bulb and then have a look at the size of the back bulb round here that's all shriveled, they were different to start with. So anyway, so all I can do with this is feed and water well, keep it hydrated, keep it out of the extreme bright light that they had last year that didn't do them any good at all. They were on the top shelf, they now live on a lower shelf. So where this lives, it's actually got quite a crowded shelf above it, even though it's in the place that gets the sun on the roof at the moment, but the shelf above it is heavy with plants. There's very little gets through, so it is in quite a shady position for this year. And as I'm not trying to bloom it, I want it to grow and get a decent root system on these pieces. It doesn't need bright light. We're not trying to do anything to the plant apart from grow it. So anyway, that's a quick update on that one, and we'll see what it looks like in 2 months' time. But what we've got is some progress that looks good. But this is separate pieces, don't forget. So each piece in its own right is a plant, if you think about it on that front. And if you take this piece here, it's got a leafless back bulb, a leaved bulb, and 2 lovely strong new growths with roots. There's nothing wrong with that piece of the plant. But take another example that on the surface looks okay, perhaps round here. Things are not so good. If you look at the leaves on this piece, they're not happy. And quite honestly, that looks like mosaic virus, but it could be a light issue. But that part of the plant's not happy. These growths here are not so good. So there are a couple of these that are successful and a couple that might end up getting dumped next time it gets repotted. Now these are being grown on as pieces. This piece could do with separating. On the grounds, the leaves are good, the roots are looking good. So what I might do is, see, we're coming into winter now, so the rate of growth is going to slow down. Not a good time to disturb the plant really, so I'll probably just take the risk and leave it because it's going to slow down anyway. Watering will become less frequent and all that sort of stuff. But in some cases, all the new growths are growing, but they're not all growing at the same rate with the same vigour. That's almost to be expected with a plant with fusarium, but it is due another fungicide treatment, systemic fungicide. Now that treatment does consist of 2 sprays at a prescribed interval, depending on which one you use. It will tell you on the packaging, treat once and then treat whatever it is, 10 days, 14 days later. So this one is due another treatment. Under normal circumstances, if the systemic fungicide actually works, it stops the fungus spreading anymore. it doesn't get rid of what's already there. It's not like a fungus that's on the leaves or something on the surface that you could wipe off manually if you wanted to. A systemic would stop that sort of thing coming back and get rid of what's there. You can't get rid of Fusarium. Those spores in the plant are permanently there. All you can do is kill them off and stop any more being produced. But those that you kill off are still, if they were blocking pathways, they still are. They don't go away. That's the problem with this thing. All you can do is stop it getting any worse. And the theory then is that new parts of the plant will grow away from it and be growing clean. And then obviously at a repot point, you take off the back end of the plant, separating off the infected areas, just in case it fires up again, and you end up with a clean bit at the front. So I'm going to give this another treatment. I'm going to do it now while I think about it, and the fact that I haven't got much else to do today in the orchid room, and then in the prescribed amount of time I will do it again. But I've had plants before that have had Fusarium and they've grown through it and come out the other end with the treatments, and I've had some where the treatment just didn't work. And all I can say is that the chances are the fungus had got to too much of the plant, so there was no room to manoeuvre. So even though I may have stopped it spreading any more, there was nowhere for it to spread to because it had badly infected the plant. And in others it might be a relatively new or weak infection, because plants do try and defend themselves at the end of the day. So we'll give this one another treatment, or another 2 treatments as it happens, and then come the repotting time next year, we will separate these bits out, give them a close inspection, and keep perhaps the best 1 or 2 to grow on again. This being one, obviously, with 2 nice strong new growths. I've got a feeling it might even have 3. No, that one's attached to this one here. See, all of these parts have similarities because they were basically a leafless back bulb with a bulb at the front. And if you take this one here, it's only grown 1 new growth, but it's a reasonable new growth. And then you take this one here. This one's only grown 1 new growth and it's quite strong, but it doesn't look good. Yeah, so they do vary a lot, but there's 1 good piece in there that I'd class as a good piece, and the rest are iffy. But with treatment, the next lot of new growths might be clean. Okay, we're into the last video for this particular orchid. As I said, this is a project all in its own right, quite honestly, this set of videos. What have we got then? At the end of the growing season, what I would hope for is new growths maturing with some new roots. Given the state of the plant at the beginning of the season and what was found and everything, that could be the best I could hope for. Now, this is the best growth here, as we saw in the last video. The 2 new growths have got bulbs now. They're not as big, but they may still grow some more. And this particular plant portion does have some roots. Now, they're not all as successful as that particular one. For instance, this growth here, this has an immature growth here and an immature growth here, and may well get discarded as a consequence. I don't think that's pulling through enough to warrant keeping. Now, this one here, the new growth here, is a nice strong one, but it only has the 1. So we'll have to have a think about whether we keep that one or not. This one here, again, new growth, not very strong. I think a lot of this will be, this is going to slow down now. Obviously it's not on a shelf that can benefit from the grow lights, basically. So this is just going to tick over for the rest of the winter, and hopefully it will come back to life again when the normal day lengths get longer again, and the temperatures start to rise during the day. Now, although this got repotted at the beginning of 2023, it will get done again in 2024 because I want to split these plants up into the individual plants in their own right. I will probably only keep the best two and discard the others on the grounds they're weaker. They will take longer to recover if they ever do. So that will be the plan for this one for next year. During the winter, there should still be some slow, but there should be some root activity. So when we get to next year, we can get this lot out of the pot, have a look and see what we've got. The ones with the nice sized bulbs with roots underneath them will become new plants in their own right. They will then grow some new growths on top of what we've already got, which I may allow to flower. Certainly this one with a strong bulb, two new growths. If those bulbs get up to a reasonable size, the next growths will be allowed to bloom, and we can see those gorgeous blooms again because they really are quite stunning. Okay, so that's that one, and hope you've enjoyed this one. As I say, it's a bit different to the others because of well, because of the things that happened. So there we go then, that was the final video for orchid number 7. There's only one more to go, orchid number 8, which will be next Friday, and then the project orchids for 2023 will be over and done. As I said, there was a lot of information in this particular video. This video stands on its own really as a useful thing for people that manage to get an orchid in that's got fusarium. You don't normally catch fusarium. You normally bring an orchid in that's already got it. It gets it somewhere else. So anyway, that's the end of that one. One more to go.